What if the most exhausting thing about your life isn't the hard people, the hard days, or the hard decisions, but the fact that you never stopped being kind through all of it? There's a version of kindness that looks like love from the outside and feels like slow disappearance from the inside. And the strangest part isn't that it's been happening, it's that you've been calling it love this whole time. There's a particular kind of tired that doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from giving too much, and then quietly pretending you didn't. You know the feeling. It lives somewhere between your chest and your throat, in that small moment after you've said yes to something you deeply wanted to say no to. Not because you were forced, not because you didn't have a choice, but because saying yes felt like the right thing. The kind thing, the thing a good person would do, and you've always wanted to be a good person. Maybe it starts small. A friend calls late, needing to talk, and even though you're exhausted from a day that already took everything from you, you answer. You listen. You give them the warmth you didn't even have left for yourself. When the call ends, you feel something strange. Not quite happy, not quite drained, but somewhere in between. Like you did the right thing, but the right thing cost you something real. You go to sleep without processing your own day, without asking yourself how you're doing, without giving any of that same gentleness to the person who needed it most, which was you. Or maybe it's at work. Someone needs help with a task that isn't yours. And you know that. You know it isn't yours. But you also know they're struggling, and something inside you, some deeply automatic, deeply familiar part of you, reaches out before your mind even catches up. You help. You stay late. You smile while doing it. And there's a brief flicker of warmth when they say thank you. A small confirmation that your kindness mattered, that you are, in fact, a good person. But then they leave, and you sit with the extra hour you just gave away, and nobody's asking how you're holding up. This is the scene. This is the one so many people live inside every single day. Not dramatically, not in a way that looks like suffering from the outside, just quietly, persistently, like a slow leak that never gets fixed, because it never gets loud enough to demand attention. And here's the name for what this is, because naming it matters. It's called self-abandonment through kindness. Not cruelty, not weakness, kindness. The very thing you were probably praised for your whole life. The very thing that made people say you were so thoughtful and so giving and so easy to be around. That thing, when it isn't rooted in a full, healthy, self-aware sense of self, can become the quietest form of self-erasure there is. The reason it's so hard to see is because it doesn't feel like harm. It feels like virtue. It feels like love. In the moment you're being kind at your own expense, there's a real emotional reward, a sense of meaning, of mattering, of being needed. And the human brain is extraordinarily good at attaching identity to what gives it that reward. So over time, you don't just do kind things, you become your kindness. It becomes the core of how you understand yourself. Which means that when someone asks you to stop, or when you start to feel resentful, or when the kindness runs dry, it doesn't just feel like exhaustion. It feels like a loss of self. Psychologically, this is where things get interesting. Research in attachment theory, the field of psychology that studies how we learn to connect with others, shows that many people who grow up in environments where love felt conditional or where emotional attunement from caregivers was inconsistent develop a particular strategy for maintaining connection. They become attuned to others. Hyper-attuned, actually. They learn to read the room before they read themselves. They learn that being helpful, being agreeable, being the one who never causes trouble, is the safest way to stay loved. This isn't a conscious choice. It's an adaptation. It's a young nervous system learning what keeps it safe and what doesn't. And by the time that nervous system grows up into an adult body, the strategy is so automatic, so fluid, so deeply embedded. It no longer feels like a strategy at all. It just feels like personality. It feels like who you are. And so you move through the world with this invisible agreement that your needs come second, that your comfort is less urgent than someone else's discomfort, that your exhaustion is less valid than someone else's request. And the truly painful part, the part that makes this so hard to untangle, is that people like you are usually surrounded by people who benefit from that agreement. Not because those people are bad, not necessarily, but because human dynamics will always find their equilibrium. If you are endlessly available, the people around you will unconsciously become used to your availability. If you never express a need, the people around you will unconsciously stop expecting you to have one. It isn't malicious. It's just gravity. Systems settle into whatever shape they're allowed to settle into. So what you have eventually is a life that looks generous from every angle except the inside. From the outside, you're dependable, warm, good. People trust you with their problems because they know you'll carry them carefully. People lean on you because you've never given them a reason not to. You are, by most visible measures, deeply kind. And yet inside, in the quiet, honest spaces that don't get shared on a phone call or at a dinner table, there is something that doesn't quite add up. A tiredness that sleep doesn't touch. A loneliness that exists even when you're surrounded by people. A faint, persistent sense that you are somehow always on the outside of your own life. That feeling has a cause. And the cause isn't that you're giving too much to the wrong people. The cause is more subtle than that, and more important. It's that you've built a version of kindness that has no room for you inside it. A kindness that is performed outward, constantly, and replenished never. A kindness that you were perhaps taught was selfless, but has, in practice, become selfless in the most literal sense. A life that is less and less self. There's also something worth understanding about what happens in the body during this pattern, because it isn't just emotional, it's physiological. When you habitually suppress your own needs in service of others, your nervous system registers that as a form of low-grade stress. Not the acute stress of a sudden threat, the chronic, slow-burn kind, the kind that doesn't produce visible symptoms at first, but quietly elevates cortisol levels, disrupts sleep architecture, reduces the capacity for genuine joy, and over time creates a baseline state of flatness. Not sadness exactly, not depression, always, just muted, like the volume of your own interior life has been slowly turned down. And you've gotten so used to the quiet that you barely notice anymore. And here's something else, the resentment. Because it comes. It always comes, in one form or another, to people who give without replenishing. It doesn't arrive loudly, at least not at first. It arrives as a flash of irritation at someone asking you for something completely reasonable. It arrives as a disproportionate exhaustion at a request that should have been small. It arrives as a creeping sense of unfairness that you immediately feel guilty for noticing, because kind people, you've told yourself, don't feel resentful. And so you push it down. You double down on the kindness. You give a little more to make up for the feeling you just had. And the cycle deepens. This isn't a character flaw. This is the entirely predictable result of a system operating beyond its own sustainable capacity. And the reason so many people find it hard to stop, even when they can feel it wearing them down, is that somewhere beneath all of it, there is a belief. A quiet, persistent, rarely examined belief that says, if I stop being this kind, I will stop being worthy of love. That the kindness isn't just something I do, it's the reason I'm wanted. And if I let it go, even a little, I might lose the people who are here because of it. That belief is exactly where we need to go next. Because understanding where it lives and why it has so much power over you is the only way to begin loosening its grip. And that's what the next part of this video is about. The internal war you've been fighting without realizing it, and the hidden cost of a conflict you were never supposed to be carrying alone. If this content speaks the words you can't explain, click subscribe. Thank you for your support. Here's the conflict that rarely gets spoken out loud, the one that lives underneath all the giving and the helping and the smiling through exhaustion. You want to stop. Some part of you, not a selfish part, not a bad part, but a real, human, deeply reasonable part, wants to just stop for a while, wants to be the one who is held for a change, wants to say honestly and without apology that you are tired, that you have needs too, that this, whatever this has become, is not sustainable. But then the other part arrives. The part that's been trained longer, the part that speaks louder. And it says, but think of what they need. Think of how it would look if you pulled back. Think of the last time someone needed you and you were actually there, and how good that felt, and how that feeling is the closest thing to certainty about your own worth that you've ever reliably had. And so you stay, you give again, you convince yourself for the 100th time that you can manage, that you'll take care of yourself later. That later is coming. This is the internal conflict, not between kindness and selfishness. That framing is far too simple, and it's the framing that keeps so many people stuck. The real conflict is between two versions of safety. One version says, I am safe when I am needed. The other version, quieter, newer, more fragile, says, I deserve to be safe even when I'm not useful. And those two beliefs do not coexist peacefully. They pull, they negotiate, they exhaust you in ways that sleep cannot fix, because the exhaustion isn't physical. It's the exhaustion of carrying a contradiction at the center of your life. Let's slow down here and look at something that most people never fully examine. Think about the moments in your life when you received the most warmth, the most genuine, undiluted sense of being valued and appreciated and seen. Where did those moments come from? Chances are, a significant number of them were moments when you did something for someone else, when you showed up for someone, when you sacrificed something, when you were visibly, undeniably helpful. The warmth you received in those moments wasn't fake. The gratitude was real. The connection was real. But here is the slow question that changes everything when you sit with it long enough. Were you ever given that same warmth simply for existing? Simply for being present, without performing anything, without producing anything, without managing anyone's emotional state? For many people, especially those who grew up in homes where love was expressed through function rather than through presence, where approval came from behavior rather than from being, the honest answer to that question is complicated. Or even, no, not really, not reliably. And if that's the case, then of course, the nervous system reached the conclusion it reached. Of course, it learned that worth must be earned through usefulness, that love has to be continuously justified, that the moment you stop giving is the moment you become, in some uncanny way, less real, less necessary, less seen, less safe. This is not a small thing. This is the architecture of an entire life, and it shapes not just how you treat others, but how you treat yourself, which is often with much less patience, much less grace, and much less tenderness than you extend to everyone around you. Think about how you speak to yourself after a long day of giving. Think about whether you refill. Think about whether you even consider refilling, or whether the very act of turning attention inward triggers a faint, irrational guilt, as if caring for yourself is somehow a betrayal of everyone counting on your care. There is a particular kind of loneliness that comes with this pattern. It is the loneliness of being surrounded by people who love the version of you that gives, and wondering, in the darkest, most honest corners of yourself, whether they would stay if you changed, whether the relationships you've built are built on you or on what you do for people, whether the version of you that needs, that asks, that sometimes says no, would be welcomed, or would quietly cause the people around you to pull back, to become confused, to find the dynamic less comfortable than it used to be. That fear isn't irrational. In some cases, it's based on real data, because sometimes when people who have always been endlessly available start drawing a boundary, even a small one, even a gentle one, the people around them do react. Not always with cruelty, sometimes with simple confusion, sometimes with a mild resentment of their own, because the equilibrium shifted. Because what used to be reliable became conditional, because the dynamic that had been comfortable for everyone else became slightly less comfortable. And if you've spent your whole life trying to keep everyone comfortable, even a small moment of someone else's discomfort, especially one you caused, can feel like confirmation of your worst fear, that you're only lovable when you are useful. But here is the realization. Here is the thing that this whole video has been building toward, slowly, quietly, the way the most important things always arrive. Not in a dramatic flash, but in a small, clear, undeniable moment of recognition. The realization is this: the kindness you've been giving, the exhausted, boundaryless, self-erasing kind, was never really about other people, not at its root. At its root, it was about you, about a version of you that needed a safe way to be in the world. A version that found very early that being needed was the closest available substitute for being truly known. That helpfulness was the currency that bought belonging, that if you just kept giving, kept showing up, kept managing, kept absorbing, you would never have to face the terrifying question of whether anyone would stay if you simply asked them to. This is not blame. This is not indictment. This is one of the most human patterns that exists, running quietly through millions of lives, expressed in millions of small daily moments that look like generosity and feel on the inside, like fear with a kind face. And the moment you see it, really see it, without defensiveness, without the urge to immediately fix or improve yourself, something shifts. Not everything, not all at once, but something. Because once you understand that the compulsive giving was never entirely selfless, that it was also a protection mechanism, a way of managing your own anxiety about worth and belonging and love, you can stop judging yourself so harshly for the exhaustion you feel. You can stop performing the kindness as evidence of your value and begin, slowly, to ask what kindness might look like when it comes from a full place, when it comes from choice, when it comes from someone who already knows they are enough, not because they've proven it through service, but because they've simply stopped requiring the proof. And that, the path from here to that place, is exactly what the next part of this story is going to take you through. Not in a way that's prescriptive or clinical or distant, but in the way that a quiet conversation with yourself might go. If you were finally honestly ready to have it. Let's talk about what this actually looks like to change, not in theory, not as a list of things to do, but as a real, gradual, honest shift in the way you relate to yourself and to the people around you. Because the solution here is not to stop being kind. If you took that away from this, the whole point got lost somewhere along the way. Kindness is not the problem. Kindness is one of the most genuinely beautiful things a person can carry through a life. The question is never whether to be kind. The question is whether your kindness has a foundation beneath it, whether it comes from fullness or from fear, whether it is given freely or surrendered anxiously. That distinction is everything. So the first, most foundational shift is not behavioral. It is perceptual. It is the slow, patient work of beginning to notice, without judgment, without urgency, the difference between the moments when your kindness feels like an expression of who you are, and the moments when it feels like a bid for safety. This distinction is subtle. It will not always be obvious, but it becomes more visible the more you practice sitting with the question. Before you say yes to something, there's a moment, brief, often bypassed almost immediately, where you feel something. What is that feeling? Is it genuine warmth, genuine willingness, genuine care? Or is it the low hum of anxiety that has learned to wear warmth as a disguise? You don't need to answer perfectly. You don't need to act differently right away. In the beginning, just noticing is enough. Just pausing long enough to ask the question is enough, because the act of asking introduces something new into a pattern that has been running on automatic for a very long time. It introduces a witness, and having a witness, even if that witness is only yourself, changes the nature of what's happening. The second shift, which follows naturally from the first, is learning to tolerate the discomfort of someone else's disappointment. This is, for people in this pattern, one of the hardest things there is, because the nervous system has been trained, reliably, repeatedly, to treat someone else's disappointment in you as a signal of danger. Not minor inconvenience, danger, the kind that activates the same physiological response as a physical threat. And so, when you do say no, when you do express a need, when you do let someone down even slightly, the discomfort is immediate and intense. The urge to fix it, to apologize, to give back the thing you just carefully took, is almost overwhelming. But here is what's true. That discomfort is not a sign that you did something wrong. It is a sign that you are doing something new. And new things, when they challenge deeply established patterns, always feel wrong before they feel right. The discomfort is not evidence that you should turn back. It's evidence that you are moving through something that matters. The person you disappointed will, in most cases, be fine. The relationship you were afraid of damaging will, in most cases, adjust to the new shape of things and become more honest for it. And the small, steady accumulation of those moments of tolerating the discomfort and surviving it is what eventually rebuilds a different kind of foundation, one where your belonging isn't earned through endless accommodation. One where you are present in your own life as a full person, not just as a function. The third shift is the one that people least expect, and it's this: let yourself be given to. This is quietly one of the most difficult things for people who have built their identity around being the giver. Receiving, being cared for, being checked on, being asked how you are, and actually answering honestly can feel intensely uncomfortable, almost intrusive. Because to receive is to be seen, not for what you do, but for what you feel and what you need. And if your whole operating system has been built around the idea that your needs are less important, that your inner life is less urgent, that taking up emotional space is somehow a burden you shouldn't impose. Then, being truly received, being truly seen, can feel like a vulnerability you weren't prepared for. Let it be uncomfortable. Let someone ask how you are and pause before deflecting to how they are. Let a friend do something kind for you without immediately looking for a way to reciprocate. Let yourself exist in the room as someone who also has needs, also has weight, also deserves the kind of attention and care that you have given so generously to everyone else for so long. Not as performance, not to prove a point, just because it's true, and you have been quietly keeping that truth hidden for far too long. There is also something important to say about the relationships in your life that were built on an imbalance, the ones where you have been the perpetual giver and the other person has been the perpetual receiver. Some of those relationships will shift gracefully as you change. As you begin to occupy more space, as you begin to have edges and needs and occasionally say no, some people will meet you there. They will welcome the more honest version of the dynamic. They will rise to reciprocity because they were always capable of it, and you never asked. Those are the relationships worth staying in. Those are the people who wanted you, not just what you could do for them, but some relationships. And this is the part worth facing clearly, without cruelty, but without self-deception either, will become uncomfortable as you change. Not because those people are villains, but because the dynamic that kept both of you in place was one where your self-erasure was, at least functionally, serving a purpose for them too. And when that shifts, when you stop filling every silence and meeting every need and absorbing every difficulty, there will sometimes be a period of friction. Some people will ask, implicitly or explicitly, for you to go back to how you were. And you will need to decide, slowly, without drama, with as much compassion for both of you as you can manage, what you want to do with that. This doesn't have to be a revolution. It doesn't have to be confrontation. The most sustainable version of this change is quiet and incremental. It is choosing, on a given afternoon, to rest instead of responding. It is letting a text wait 2 hours because you are taking a walk and the walk matters. It is telling a friend that you're not okay when they ask, instead of saying fine. It is cooking yourself a meal with the same care you would bring to cooking for someone you love. Small acts, daily acts, acts of remembering, over and over again, because you will forget, and that's okay, that you are also someone who deserves to be taken care of. And over time, something changes in the quality of the kindness you do give. Because when you are giving from a place that is actually replenished, the kindness doesn't feel like obligation. It doesn't carry the faint, underlying tax of resentment. It doesn't leave you sitting quietly in the car afterward, calculating how much you gave away today and whether there's enough left to get through tomorrow. It feels like choice, like overflow, like sharing something that you have in abundance rather than rationing something you don't have enough of. That is the difference between kindness that comes from fullness and kindness that comes from depletion. And it is one of the most important differences there is, not just for you, but for the people you give to. Because here's a quiet truth that is easy to miss. People feel the difference. They can feel when your yes is freely given and when it is anxiously surrendered. They can feel when your care is genuine and when it is a performance of being the person you need to be seen as. Children especially feel it, with an accuracy that is sometimes uncomfortable to acknowledge. When you give from a depleted, anxious place, the giving still counts, it still helps, but it carries a weight, a heaviness. And when you give from a rested, whole, genuinely willing place, it lands differently. It opens something in the person receiving it, because they can feel that it cost you nothing, that it was simply an expression of who you are, and not a silent sacrifice you are making and tracking and hoping will be returned. That version of kindness is possible for you. It isn't a distant ideal or a personality you would need to become. It is the same instinct you already have, the same genuine warmth, the same real attentiveness to others, simply rooted in a self that has been attended to, a self that has been fed and rested and spoken kindly to, a self that doesn't need the giving to confirm its worth, because it has already, quietly, through all the small private acts of self-regard, confirmed it. So here is where this conversation ends, and where the real one, the one between you and yourself, begins. Not with a list of resolutions, not with a plan you'll follow for 3 days, and then abandon when life gets complicated again, but with a single question to carry with you, gently, without pressure. What would today look like if I treated myself with even half the kindness I give to everyone else? Not all of it, not a radical overhaul, just half, just a fraction, and see what happens when that question starts to get a real answer. There is a whole other story waiting on the other side of that question, one about what happens when people who have spent their whole lives giving finally, quietly, courageously, without fanfare, decide to receive. If that story sounds like one you need to hear next, it's already waiting for you.